Welcome back to Watercolors with Aria. In the last episode, we practiced using tea, milk, and cream consistencies of watercolor and how to apply those consistencies to add depth and dimension to our paintings. Today we will add to that toolbox by discussing color theory and how to use it to add even more life to our artwork. Whether you're a beginner or just want to strengthen your skills, this tutorial will guide you through how color theory works specifically with watercolors. So with that, let's get started. For this tutorial, I will be using Elsewhere Unplug's large watercolor notebook that contains watercolor paper that is perfect for adding lots of layers to our paintings. I will also be using their bamboo watercolor palette that has all the colors we need for this tutorial. In order to discuss color theory, we need a color wheel, so I thought it would be a great idea for us to just create our own color wheel together. Color wheels are great additions to any watercolor notebook because they kind of act as cheat sheets when you are doing any kind of artwork. They also look very pretty and professional. To begin, we are going to start by painting our primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue. Primary colors cannot be created or mixed using other colors, and so they will essentially be our starting point for all the other colors we will be creating. The color palette I am using, created by Elsewhere Unplug, actually has the perfect three primary colors of red, yellow, and blue, which are really the only three colors you need to make all the other colors, and I will show you why in this tutorial. I will begin by adding enough water to our red until I get a milk cream consistency, and then paint a small triangle on the top of our page. I will then clean my brush with water and then add some water to the triangle to blend it out, which will allow me to see what the red color looks like as a tea consistency. I am then going to repeat this process with our yellow, making a cream milk consistency, and then paint a small triangle on our page and then blending that out with some water. I will now repeat that same process with our blue, painting a little triangle on the page and then blending it out with some water. So when we are done, we should have a triangle of our three primary colors. And just so we don't lose track, I am actually going to make a list of the colors we are adding as we go so we can keep track of all the colors and their categories as we make our color wheel. So I'm just going to go ahead and add little splotches to kind of make a list of the colors that we're working with. So for our primaries, we have our red, yellow, and blue. We will now add in our secondary colors. Secondary colors are created by mixing two of the primary colors together. So first, we will mix red and yellow to get orange. And so I'll just go ahead and mix those two colors in our watercolor palette, and then I'm going to just do the same thing I did with the other three colors and make a simple little triangle with the orange in between the red and the yellow. And then blend that out with some more water to get the more tea consistency of orange, and then I will go ahead and add orange to our list of secondary colors. To get green, we mix our primary colors of blue and yellow in our palette, and once we are satisfied with the shade of green, we can paint a little triangle between the yellow and blue and blend it out with water and then add it to the list. We get our final secondary color of purple by mixing blue and red and then painting a little triangle using that purple in between our blue and red triangles, blending it out with water, and then add it to our list of secondary colors. So now we are going to talk about our final group of colors, which is our tertiary colors. Tertiary colors are created by mixing one of the primary colors of red, yellow, or blue with one of their neighboring secondary colors of orange, green, or purple. For instance, if we mix red and orange, we will get what I just refer to as red-orange. If we mix orange and yellow with each other, we will get orange-yellow. So I'm actually just going to use the little orange puddle I already have in my palette, and by simply adding a little bit more red, I'm going to make my red-orange color. This might take a little bit of back and forth between the primary colors of red and yellow to get that exact red-orange color that you want, and that is perfectly okay. Once I have what I think is a little bit more leaning towards a red than a yellow color, I'll go ahead and add that to my color wheel in between my red and orange triangles, doing the same technique, just making a little triangle and then blending that out with some water to make a more tea consistency of that color. And then I'm going to add that color to our list of tertiary colors below. Okay, so now let's do that same thing to make our orange-yellow color. So now I'm just going to wet my yellow palette and just add it to that same mixture of my red-orange and just lighten it up by adding some more yellow. And then once I think I have a nice orange-yellow color, I'll go ahead and add that color to my color wheel as well as our tertiary color list below. Let's go ahead and move on to our yellow-green color. So for this one, we're just going to add a little bit more yellow to our green little swatch in our palette. And then once we have a nice color, we'll add that to our list, make a little triangle, and blend that out with some water. We will do that again for the blue-green or more turquoise color by adding a little bit more blue to that green and paint another little triangle, blend that out with water, and add it to the list. We will do the same thing to make the blue-purple color, add a little bit more blue to our purple palette, make a little triangle, blend that out with water, and add it to the list. And then finally we will make our more magenta color or purple-red by adding a little bit more red to our palette, paint a little triangle, blend it out with water, and add it to the list. At the end, we will have a total of 12 colors to make our beautiful color wheel. Our 3 primary colors, 3 secondary colors, and our 6 tertiary colors. Now we are going to get into the fun part of color theory using our color wheel by discussing analogous and complementary colors. Analogous colors are neighboring colors on the color wheel, and it's best when working with them to work in groups of 3s. Complementary colors are going to be the colors that are opposite from each other on the color wheel. So red and green are complementary, blue and orange are complementary, and purple and yellow are complementary. This is why it's great to have a physical color wheel like the one we just created, because sometimes complementary colors can be a bit difficult to remember. So, what happens when we mix colors that are complementary? I'm going to test this out by first adding a milk consistency of red to our paper. Now, we know that by looking at our color wheel that the complement to red is green. So, since Elsewhere has such a lovely green already in their palette, I'm just going to go ahead and add some water to their green. But as we just proved in our color wheel, we can also make our own green by mixing yellow and blue. So I'll just add a little swatch of green on the paper and then go ahead, mix their green with the red, and then add that to our paper to see what happens. So as you can see, when we mix red and its complement color green, the two colors neutralize each other out to make a brownish color. Let's try the same thing with 2 other complementary colors and see what happens. For our second example, let's take yellow and then add its complementary color, which by looking at our color wheel, the opposite of yellow is purple. So I will just go ahead and add both of those colors individually to our color equation and then mix them in our palette. It might feel whenever you mix a complementary color that's a little closer to yellow, it can turn a little bit more muddy, and that is totally fine. It just takes a little bit longer to find that balance that neutralizes the two colors. So when we mix yellow and purple in our color wheel palette, again we notice that the colors neutralize each other out and we get more of a brownish color. So I'll just go ahead and label these as our complementary relationships and maybe add a little heart just because I love love. So at this point you might be asking yourself, Aria, why are complementary colors so important if they make these weird muddy tones? Well, what's really great about complementary colors is that we can actually use these tones to make our paintings come to life. Especially now that we're in fall, these colors are going to be really important to cool down our summer tones that we were using and start to make more earthy paintings. Furthermore, in nature, you don't just see one shade of green. There are thousands and thousands of different shades, and so with color theory, we can mix different colors to try and replicate those varieties of different greens and purples and blues and yellows that we oftentimes see in nature. Another way we can use complementary colors to bring paintings to life is by painting an object and then using the object's complementary color to make the shadow. I will go ahead and do an example down below by painting two simple orange pumpkins. And while I am painting these pumpkins, I would like to add that you can also add shadows to an object by simply using tea, milk, and cream consistency methods that we learned in the last episode. This is just another way to darken and add a little bit more depth to those shadows. For the first example, I will use black, and then for the other example, I'll use orange's complement of blue. Alright, so now that we have our two little pumpkins, I'm going to start by using the first example of how to add shadows to an orange pumpkin by simply darkening the color of our orange by mixing it with a little bit of black in our palette. Once I like the shadow color, I'll go ahead and add a little bit of a shadow to the bottom right of my first pumpkin. As you can see, it's kind of like a dark brownish orange. I'll also go ahead and add the details of my pumpkin using my black-orange mixture. For the second example, I am now going to mix orange's complement of blue to make the shadows of our second pumpkin. Once I have a color I like, we can go ahead and paint a little bit of shadow just like we did with our first example. As you can see, as I'm adding the blue and orange mixture, it's very similar to the black-orange color. Again, that's because orange and blue are complements, and so they neutralize each other to get more of an earthy tone. And so sometimes people even just add a shadow of blue without even mixing it with orange because they feel that it looks a little bit more lifelike. For me personally, when I paint, I use both techniques when adding shadows and dimensions to my watercolors, which a lot of people might disagree with me and argue I take value out of my paintings by not only working with complementary colors, and that's okay. It's really up to you as the artist what you think looks nice. In my opinion, both of them look really lovely. So if I'm feeling a little bit more artsy, I'll probably resort to my color theory background and work with the complements of the colors I am using. But if I am in the zone, adding black to your colors works just as well as adding the complement. So now I have this beautiful color theory worksheet that I can resort to whenever I want with my color wheel, a list of primary, secondary, tertiary colors, as well as examples of what happens when I mix complementary colors together. Now that we have a basic understanding of color theory, let's do a painting together. For today's lesson, I'm going to pick an object of a more tertiary color so we can challenge ourselves with our new color wheel. I really liked this beautiful purple-red color we made, so today we are going to paint two pomegranates. I have our color wheel that we made together just above so that I can reference it when I need it. And I'm also going to use Elsewhere Unplug's smaller little watercolor notebook that's great for making little postcards that you can tear out and send to your friends and family. So since we are painting pomegranates, sometimes what I like to do is if I know the color of the subject of my painting, in this case purple red, I will paint the background of my painting first using the complementary color. So for pomegranates, that would be yellow green. And what this will do is when we go to add the shadows of our subject, the shadows will become more lifelike because we're working with the complement of the color. So here I'm just going to wet my watercolor paper with some water, and then I'll go back in with a little bit of green and just kind of spread that color around on the paper to make a nice wash of a green background. It's important that you don't add too much water as that can cause your watercolor paper to peel. You just want enough water to be able to spread it around on the page, but not so much that you create a puddle on your paper. What I love about Elsewhere Unplug's watercolor paper is that it can absorb a lot of water, allowing you to not only do washes like this, but also go back and add some more layers of watercolor onto your paper as well. The most important thing when doing washes is that you give enough time for the paper to dry completely before you add the subject to the paper, otherwise the watercolor will bleed into each other and there won't be a difference between the background and the pomegranates that you're painting. Once our paper is completely dry, we're going to go ahead and start mixing our purple and red in our palette to get that nice pomegranate color. Once I am satisfied with my pomegranate color, I'm just going to paint a very simple circle for my pomegranate, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with our nice beautiful magenta pomegranate color. And then while the paint is still wet, I'll go ahead and add kind of the stem flowery part, I guess, of the pomegranate. One thing I like to do is if I have an idea of where the light is coming from on our picture, while the paint is still wet, I'm actually going to go back in and clean my brush with water and then come back in and just kind of brush away the section where I want a little bit more light to show. And so this is really a great technique with watercolor because it does get really complicated to have to think about all those layers as you're working with watercolors. So this really is an easy tool to have where you can just brighten up a section of any painting by simply just adding water to it. So now we can go ahead and add our second pomegranate. I'll just put this one in a different direction. Again, just trying to make a simple circle and then just adding the little stem flower bit of our pomegranate to our painting while the paint is still wet. So I love the purple red color that we have created, but to me it looks a little bit dull. So I'm actually just going to add a little bit of yellow to my already pomegranate color in my palette just to brighten it up a little bit. So this is why I love watercolor so much. It's because of all the layers you can add to it, and in most watercolor painting you find you can also see all those layers, which I think makes the painting feel more alive and just kind of elevates your watercolors a little bit more. So now that I have the general shape and where I want the highlights of my watercolor to be, I'm now going to start working on my shadows. And so what I usually like to do is I kind of like to map out the shadows of my subject by just painting the shadows with a more milk or cream consistency of that subject, like what we did on the last episode with painting different leaves with the tea, milk, and cream consistency. So we will use that same technique by making some more of the pomegranate color that we just used, but make a more of a milk cream consistency rather than a tea consistency. So I'm just going to go in and do some light brush strokes to our first pomegranate and just add in where I think the shadow should be. And I kind of do this pretty roughly just because I personally like that style of watercolor. You can get a little bit more detailed and be a little bit more precise in terms of your brush strokes, but for me, I just kind of try to get the general area of where the shadows are going to be and try not to worry about perfection. So now that we have a rough idea of where our shadows are going to be, let's go ahead and add the complement of our pomegranate color. So looking across our color wheel, we see that the complement of purple red is yellow green. Now, because these pomegranates are starting to be a little bit more on the red side, I'm actually going to add a slightly more blue green color rather than a yellow green color. So mixing that green color with red will neutralize the colors and get more of an earthy tone shadow that we can then go ahead and roughly paint to the bottom right of our first pomegranate. After adding that shadow to the page, and once the second layer of paint is dry on the pomegranates, we can then go back into the pomegranates and add that mix of complementary colors to add more shadowing to our pomegranates. Again, I'm kind of going in pretty roughly with my brush strokes just because I like that style, but you can be a little bit more intentional with your brush strokes. This really is up to the artist's choice. Now, this is my favorite part of watercolor because as each layer of our painting dries, it's going to add more and more dimension to our colors. So as each layer dries, you can then go back in and add more shadows and just continue doing that until you feel satisfied with your painting. Once I've added the shadows, I kind of want to fill in our painting a little more, so I'm going to go back in and add the leaves that we learned how to paint in the first episode. And actually, since we are painting green leaves, we can get a little bit more practice in with our color theory by adding green's complement of red, which will give our leaves a little bit more variety and also make them look a little bit more earthy. And so for the leaves, I'm going to try and not neutralize our green completely because I actually just want to try and tone down this bright green color to give it a more autumn feel. If we want to fill out the page a little bit more and add more dimension, we can resort back to our last lesson where we start with more of a tea consistency of leaf and paint those first. Allow those to dry and then go back in with our more cream consistency of leaves. Adding foliage like this, especially to nature paintings like fruits or flowers, is such a beautiful and also quite simple way to just fill out the page a little bit more and get rid of some of that empty space. So here, I'm just adding a few more leaves after a layer has dried by just mixing a little bit more of those green and red complementary colors, leaning a little bit more towards the green, and just kind of roughly adding some more top layer of leaves. So with painting, especially when it comes to painting leaves, color theory is a great way to add different leaves because, as you know, leaves aren't all one color, and sometimes it's really tricky to make a group of leaves look different from each other. But with color theory, we can make a bunch of different versions of the same color by simply either darkening green by making a more cream consistency, adding black to the green to make more of a darker green, or we can add green's complement, which is red, to get more of an earthy tone of green. So now that the shadows of our pomegranates have dried while we were painting the leaves up above, we can now even go back to the shadows and add a little bit more depth to them. Sometimes I even like to blend my shadows out a bit, but again, it's totally up to you if you want to make your shadows a little bit more crisp to make it feel like it's more of a solid object. Especially when it comes to nature paintings, I usually like to blend my shadows out a little bit more to have more of a natural look to them. So now, because I love watercolors so much, this is where you will start to see me get a little wild because I'm just going to want to continue to add layers and layers to our pomegranates just because, again, the more layers you add, the more life you're going to add to your painting, in my opinion. It's totally up to you where you want to stop. Sometimes I do get a little bit carried away and maybe add too many layers, but watercolor really just is a media that you can really allow your mind to flow. So I'm just going to continue adding some layers using either the complementary colors to our pomegranates, and then also add maybe a few more layers to our leaves, such as the stems. But with that, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Color theory is one of my favorite concepts to talk about, so teaching this lesson was something I was really looking forward to. If you have any questions or suggestions for future lessons, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you have been enjoying these lessons, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. It would mean the world to me. And be sure to check out Elsewhere Unplug's website for all your painting needs. See you next time.